Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and about this time last year, I did something a little different than what I usually do. Throughout the year, we certainly do plenty of adventures with Marvel and DC, as well as adventures geared around the toy lines that I grew up with in the 80s. Stuff like G.I. Joe, Transformers, He Man, that sort of thing. And so last Christmas, I realized that we had been giving a lot of love to the stuff that had been targeted at boys when I was growing up, but we had hardly any videos that tackled the female demographic. So while we did reimagine this through a James Bond meets Doc Savage sort of lens, we did a Barbie game and it went shockingly well. So we decided to run another Barbie game yesterday, and yet again, it went shockingly well. My wife got pretty much nothing but Barbie for Christmas when she was a kid. And so she associates those two things. So in my house, running a Barbie adventure around Christmas time is starting to become a tradition. And again, for anyone that thinks this sounds lame, we did take a lot of liberties with it. I put my own spin on it, and hopefully, even if you are like me and you have no interest in the actual Barbie franchise itself whatsoever, you'll hopefully get a kick out of how we ran this game. But before we get into it, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, but also we love hearing from you guys. We've got an awesome community here, and it's all thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So, all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to today's story takes place in the Caribbean at a festival called Sugar Moss. It is something akin to Mardi Gras, but takes place in early December. Our resident spy and polymath, Barbara Roberts, aka Barbie, walks out of the ocean and up onto a beach. She takes off her hot pink wetsuit, and under it, she's wearing a sexy dress suitable for partying at the carnival. She slips a stolen key drive into her cleavage, grabs a carnival mask from a nearby table, and then blends in with a crowd of other hot women. Bad guys from a near undersea base come looking for her, but fail to find her. She makes her way through the carnival only for one bad guy to finally get a good roll of the dice and recognize the famous blonde spy. So we got a brief chase scene, but Barbie ditches them and safely gets to the airport, which brings us to the main plot. Barbie's helicopter lands on her private cruise ship. We learn that this is her expansive headquarters now after the recent fires in Malibu that burnt down her old mansion, which, of course, was inspired by the Barbie Dreamhouse toy. Everything in this adventure, believe it or not, is actually somehow in the toy line, right? Anyway, so Barbie steps out of the helicopter and goes to her private room where she changes from being pilot Barbie into a pink string bikini, which you might think was me trying to take the Barbie stuff and kind of amp it up and make it more sexy. But that was actually my wife's contribution. She was the one playing Barbie. And also interesting, to me at least, was that at the start of the adventure, Barbie laments the fact that she's single. My wife specifically says that Barbie needs to find herself a man, someone who does not age, since Barbie herself doesn't age either. As a brief aside, like so many characters in our game world, Barbie has visited Paradise Island and passed through the mists of eternal youth that surround it. Point being, our Barbie is single and lonely, and she has been for a very long time now. So, despite the fact that she might actually be the wealthiest person in our world, she still isn't happy. Barbie then heads out onto the deck of the cruise ship where she fakes a smile, which I thought was interesting. Already, the Barbie that we're getting doesn't quite line up with my own pre existing expectations of what I had imagined Barbie would be like, right? But I loved my wife's take on it. Anyway, so Barbie's parents are here, which I also thought was interesting. Her mom is a robotics engineer, and her dad is also an engineer, and that's canon to the Barbie universe or whatever you want to call it. And they are demonstrating their newest creations to Barbie and her many friends who are all sort of lounging around poolside, which to me felt like something out of the old Charlie's Angels TV show or the Danger Girl comics by J. Scott Campbell. Barbie's parents, George and Margaret, show the girls a nano patch. George actually makes a very small incision on himself, and then they slap that patch on the cut, and the nanites go in and repair the cut very, very quickly. The second gadget is presented by Barbie's mom, who, by the way, is also a stunningly beautiful woman with blonde hair and blue eyes and all that. And the second gadget is a power source akin to Iron Man's famous arc reactor. All of Barbie's sisters are here too, and there's a lot of them. And because we use real time in our game world, not only are they all fully grown, but every single one of them looks exactly like Barbie, which we thought was interesting. But, anyways, one of these many sisters is Skipper, and she's got a lot of tech related skills. So, while she helps her mom with the demonstration, some enemy drones decloak and then try to steal these two gadgets. Barbie and her friends all pull out guns, which to me is just kind of a funny visual. Interestingly enough, there have been toys like Spy Barbie over the years. So, again, this is not really a violation of Barbie canon, if you could even say there is such a thing. And speaking of Barbie cannons, Skipper pulls out a massive hot pink rocket launcher and takes a shot at one of those drones. The drones are made of some kind of durable metal, making them hard to deal with. So they do manage to steal Barbie's parents' inventions, and some of them get away while the heroes destroy some of the other drones. After the fight, Barbie takes command, telling her team to gather up all the pieces, look for clues. She wants to know exactly who made this stuff and where they took it. After a few successful detective rolls of the dice, the girls conclude that the drones were made in Wilhelmsreich, which is a small, forested European microstate between Germany and the Netherlands. Before King Arthur's recent ascent to the throne, this country was ruled by a villain named Duchess Rowena, who's kind of like a mix of Doctor Doom and Ra's al Ghul. Anyway, so the heroes go to the capital city of Wilhelmsreich, which is called Jacobstadt, and it's known for its castles, cobblestone streets, and the surrounding misty, snow covered forest. The group of girls pose as sort of giggly sorority girls that are here for the holidays. Speaking of which, I should probably tell you which girls Barbie selected for this mission. So there was Drew, who is actually a communications specialist. And again, this is straight out of the Barbie characters. We added nothing to the character at all. She's a Caucasian girl with long brown hair, and then she's got a blonde streak in front, kind of like Rogue from X-Men. Next up is Kayla, And something interesting about the actual Kayla dolls that Mattel released is that they made them in every single color scheme. So some Kayla dolls were Caucasian, some were African American, some were redheads, some were blondes, some were brunettes, etc. And since we were ripping off all this other stuff like James Bond, I thought it would be kind of cool if Kayla was like the team's version of Zartan from G.I. Joe. So when we see her here, she has disguised herself as a native of this region. She's blending in and trying to get other people think that she belongs here, right? Basically, every time we see her, she always does that no matter where she is, which I thought was kind of cool. Next up is Kenzie, who actually gets my vote for the most badass Barbie doll of all time. Her skills are surveillance and espionage, and the Kenzie toy actually came with like grappling hooks and other spy stuff, which is kind of wild for a Barbie product. Even weirder, in my opinion, is that her official write up says, and I quote, Kenzie is tough enough to go toe to toe with any G.I. Joe if necessary, which is funny because G.I. Joe is owned by Hasbro, but Barbie is owned by Mattel. So they're kind of throwing shade. But anyway, Kenzie is a Caucasian girl with really frizzy kind of auburn hair. Next up is Midge, aka Margaret Hadley. Like I said earlier, a bunch of the Barbie characters don't age, and Midge is one of them, right? And while the others seem to have acclimated to life in the modern era, a lot of the slang and fashion and stuff that Midge uses is actually from the Silver Age. She comes off as sort of like the team's nerdiest member. She's like the Donatello of the group. And her specialty is actually psychology. And for anybody who doesn't know, Midge has red hair. And if Midge is the Donatello, then Raquel is our Raphael. She is the closest thing that Barbie has to a rival. She can do everything that Barbie can do, just not quite as well. She has long black hair, and throughout the adventure, she was basically the tough one. Next up is Renee Chow, whose official write up says she is also a spy. She's also weirdly tall, which to me would make her stick out like a sore thumb. But nonetheless, she was on the team due to her spy skills. Next up is Shawnee, who is the team's information specialist. She's good at finding hidden messages, and she is African American. One of the girls sets up a meeting with an informant who she refers to as Hans Rotbruck, which eagle eyed subscribers might notice is actually the German translation of the name John Redbridge. I had not originally planned on inserting a Redbridge into the adventure, but my wife gave Barbie that scene at the beginning where she was so lonely. So I stuck Redbridge in here kind of last minute. And when he walks into the bookstore, pretending to be a native, of this area named Hans Rotbruck, he's doing that Clark Kent thing where he's wearing glasses. And for whatever reason, that whole thing hit a chord with my wife. So she was way more into playing out the flirting dynamic between Barbie and Redbridge than she usually is. It was also weird because throughout the adventure, Redbridge got terrible rolls of the dice, while Barbie got amazing rolls. She kept rolling critical successes. And because of that, she really did feel like the James Bond figure in this, right? Which inadvertently meant that Redbridge was now relegated to being kind of like a gender bent Bond girl, which was weird, man. But my wife was having fun, so I didn't really mind it too much. Point being, Redbridge walks in, and one of the girls comments and says something like how hot he is. So Barbie kind of goes out of her way to flirt a little bit more, which I think was my wife trying to call dibs. Anyways, so the two of them kind of flirt some, and Redbridge is actually trying to drop hints about what's going on in this region without certain people overhearing them. But Barbie totally misunderstands what those hints are and thinks it's just flirting, right? And so then she starts hinting back to him, but her stuff is like it only works as flirting and it doesn't have like that literal spy level to it. So then Redbridge is really confused. He's like, what are you trying to tell me? Like, what are we talking about here? So after they get past the initial miscommunications, Redbridge tells the player characters that Duchess Rowena hates King Arthur and this new kingdom that is, coming together, and she doesn't want to give up any of her power. So the player characters tell him that there's these two gadgets, the nano patch and the arc reactor, and they've been stolen. And so when he hears that, he suspects that Rowena wants to somehow weaponize them. He says an arc reactor would make a really powerful bomb. And that nanotech could kill a person in a variety of ways, just take their cells apart, dismantle them. Or it might make Rowena young again. She's been using magic to do that, but she still has gray hair and stuff, and she'd, probably like to be a hot young woman again if she could. At any rate, as he is talking, Rowena's henchmen have followed Redbridge into the bookstore and they see him squealing, right? So they try to take him out. Barbie makes a perception check and then tackles Redbridge, which, by the way, is no small feat since he's built like a tank. And since that attempt to get rid of him failed, the bad guys jump into an old black 1930s European sedan and they try to escape through the winding, narrow cobblestone streets of Jacobstadt. The bad guys hit a cart that belonged to a vendor that was selling food. The cart is smashed, and now there are crates all over the street. Barbie and Redbridge jump into her tricked out 1979 Corvette Stingray, and that is pretty much her answer to James Bond's classic Aston Martin. I talked to my wife about how the Corvette rides low and there are crates on the street. So she rolls the dice, succeeds, and gets the Corvette up on two wheels, right? Kind of like the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard. And by doing that, she avoids the debris on the street. Her friends follow closely behind in a pink Jeep, which again, every single vehicle in this adventure was based on an actual vehicle that Mattel sells for that toy line, right? But at any rate, the one driving the Jeep botches her die roll, and so the Jeep actually manages to get caught up on all this crap in the street. So Barbie and Redbridge are then the only ones still in pursuit of the assassins. So the chase zigs and zags through narrow alleyways until finally the bad guy who is driving the getaway car fails a roll and he wrecks the car just as he was trying to squeeze into a very narrow alley. The Corvette comes to a stop in a similarly narrow alleyway with only about an inch of either side of the car. So between the vet's side mirrors, the stone walls of the surrounding buildings are only about 1 inch away. So Barbie and Redbridge don't have room to open the doors. But thankfully, the Corvette is a convertible. So they slide down over the hood into the street where the bad guys are getting out of their black car. Barbie punches the driver, substituting her 10 APs of martial arts for strength. He takes some damage, but is still barely awake. The guy in the back seat gets out and attacks. On the passenger side, the guy in front gets out, and Redbridge manages to knock him out in a single punch, which is about the only time in the whole game that the dice actually cooperated with John Redbridge. The guy in the back seat gets out, and he actually manages to shoot Redbridge in the torso. Redbridge eventually knocks both thugs out. On Barbie's side, She hides behind one of the men, which prompted us to joke that Mattel now needs to make a toy called Barbie's Human Shield. Barbie examines Redbridge's gunshot wound after she's knocked out her bad guys, and she tells Redbridge that thankfully she's also a doctor, so she can take care of it. The two of them drag a henchman over to the Corvette, stuff him in the trunk, then drive to a cabin in the forest outside of town. Barbie handcuffs the henchman to a wooden beam inside of the cabin, and then she treats Redbridge's wound. My wife and I played it out, and there was actually a really nice moment between the two characters. She asks Redbridge, if his real name is Hans, which is the name when they first met, and he says, if you want to get really technical about it, I don't even have a name. She asks how that could be, and he describes himself as a clone and as a super soldier for a war that his creators lost interest in. He says that he was just disposable cannon fodder. And Barbie says the fact that he is sentient means he's not disposable to her. After several tender moments, they actually share their first kiss, just in time for the others to walk in. Barbie's friends start to give her a hard time, but she still lingers close to John for the rest of the night, even at one point making him hot cider with brandy in it to help him with the pain from the wound. The henchman comes around, and Barbie asks who their best interrogator is. Redbridge says it's probably him, but she kind of squeezes his shoulder and suggests he might want to sit this one out, which again, I didn't mind, but it felt weird that the guy who is so often our main character is once again in the role now of supporting character. So the raven-haired Raquel says she'll interrogate the goon, and she does. Again, she's the one that I compare to Raphael from Ninja Turtles, right? So she gets him to talk, and he admits that he works for this guy named Desmond. So Raquel asks where they can find this Desmond, and the goon tells the heroes that Desmond owns a ski resort. So we get a time skip to the next day. The sun is out now, as are the snow bunnies. And there are rich men and their kind of trophy wives and stuff all enjoying the European slopes when the Barbie RV pulls up and parks in the parking lot outside of the ski lodge. Barbie walks out and she's basically disguised herself as a bimbo. She's popping bubble gum and she's acting kind of slutty and she's acting like she's stupid. Redbridge steps out and he is wearing white lace-up boots, gray snow pants, and a white winter coat with a hoodie. He's also got white rimmed ski glasses with kind of like a pearlescent visor. And all of that, by the way, is a reference to one of his old costumes that was actually my wife's favorite iteration of the character ever. So that was kind of for her benefit. All of Barbie's friends are also dressed like ski bunnies, and they all head into the ski lodge and they see a painting of Desmond in the lobby. He has gray hair and he's kind of slender and grizzled, but he looks tough. So the girls go up to the front desk to check in, and Barbie is like more or less doing her best impression of Paris Hilton, right? Pretending to talk about gossip and celebrities and basically wanting the employees here to see her and her team as anything other than a threat. Redbridge sees the painting and he asks if Desmond is around. The receptionist asks if he's a friend of Desmond's. Redbridge plays it off and says, well, we're just kind of acquaintances. The receptionist tells Redbridge that Desmond still lives in a separate building on top of the mountain, so high that the air is too thin for helicopters to go up there. So the only way up is via the ski lift. And so then Kayla, who again is kind of our resident Zartan knockoff, changes her coloration and she pretends when she gets to the top of the ski lift to have fallen ill. as a result of the extreme cold and the thin air. She's kind of greenish, So the guards up here aren't really sure what to do, but they keep them distracted with fast talk and, this whole routine while John Redbridge, Barbie, and her sister Skipper sneak off undetected to snoop around. So those three spy on the bad guys and find them talking about, sure enough, reversing the stolen arc reactors, turning them into non-radioactive bombs, and mass producing them, right? And as the heroes are spying, each hero has to make a roll of the dice using the stealth skill. And John and Barbie succeed, but Skipper actually gets a critical failure. So she makes some noise, which the bad guys hear and investigate. And that brings us to the classic James Bond trope of a ski chase down a mountain. So the heroes run back to the ski lift, and Barbie uses another Omni gadget of hers for a signal watch. The watches that all of her friends are wearing vibrate silently. So Kayla changes back to normal colors, says she's suddenly feeling much better, and they all ski down the mountain. And then the other three that were the spies, they ski down as well. And then this is like the longest segment in the adventure. Every round, the characters have to roll to keep skiing, and then the ones who also want to fire a weapon have to roll for that as well. And interestingly enough, during this action sequence, Redbridge, who had a penalty from the first gunshot wound, um, ends up with yet another bullet in him. This time we rolled on a hit location table from another RPG, and the location we got was his right shoulder. So now, because of that, both of his arms get penalties to everything he does physically, right? So he's hurting. One by one, the henchmen fall and get hurt. And through the course of this scene, Raquel also gets shot. And Skipper just fails a ski roll, so she falls down. Redbridge manages to start an avalanche with a grenade at one point, then tackle a guy off of a snowmobile. Redbridge grabs Skipper when she's on the ground and in danger of getting hit by that avalanche, and he's dragging her harmlessly alongside the snowmobile. But due to his wounds, every time he tries to pull her up onto the vehicle, he fails his roll. The dice were just not on his side. Finally, Skipper makes her roll that she needs, and she climbs on behind him. Raquel gets to her feet too, and the heroes get to the bottom safely, having either shot all of the bad guys on the way down, or the bad guys fell because of failed rolls, and the avalanche took them out. In one way, shape, or form, every single bad guy is buried in snow at this point, right? So once the heroes are at the bottom of the mountain, they get into the Barbie RV and drive away. In the back of it, tables fold out, and we kind of commented that every gadget the Barbie owns has OmniArm self-linked, so that all of her stuff is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of vehicles. So the sides of the RV turn into an emergency medical area, and Barbie pulls yet another bullet out of Redbridge. And he tells her that he's usually not this inept, referring to all the crappy dice rolls he's gotten. And she gives him another kiss and says that he saved her sister, and that's pretty impressive in her book. I had planned on the PCs learning more back at the ski resort, but the failed stealth check changed that. So instead, they go back to that henchman that they still have tied up. And this time, Barbie interrogates him, doing her best Sarah Connor impression. She tells him that there's 206 bones in the human body and that she's going to break them one by one until he tells her where the arc reactor is. He says he doesn't know, so she acts like she's just going to snap one of his fingers. Then he tells her that he overheard people using the word Eisenchrone, but he doesn't know what it means. So Skipper gets out her laptop and she does her thing, since she's kind of the tech person for the team, eventually finding out that there's a nearby castle called Berg Eisenchrone. He says it is supposedly in a state of disrepair and is no longer accessible to the public, but it has had a lot of high-tech stuff installed in it recently. So Barbie decides to check it out solo. And for whatever reason, I assumed she was going to go in using stealth. Boy, was I wrong. Because at Walmart right now, they are selling the remote controlled Barbie monster truck. And since in this adventure, I was telling my wife that if they made it for Barbie to have as a toy, then her character had it too, right? So my wife drives up to the entrance of this castle in a freaking hot pink monster truck. She then subs an Omni gadget for a flamethrower, but she says she doesn't want to pull it out of her utility belt. Instead, she wants it to pop out of the truck somewhere, which I allowed. So she said that the headlights flip down, sort of like the vehicles in an old toy line called Mask, which stood for Mobile Armored Strike Command, in case anybody wants to look it up. They spell command with a K, which is goofy, but that's how it was. Anyways, very similar to that. The monster truck lights move aside, flamethrowers extend, and then she starts roasting guards. She's got this loudspeaker, and she says, "That's what you get for shooting my boyfriend and almost killing my little sister." Then Barbie drives this thing into the front door of the castle. So, she rolls some dice, she does some damage, not enough to get through. So she throws it in reverse, revs the engine, and then she drives into the door again. And this time she rolled double tens, then double nines, and then a nine and a 10, which for anyone who doesn't know is an amazing roll in DC Heroes. Humorously enough, we'd figured out that the scale of the monster truck was, and we looked at the scale of the dungeon map I had made, which again, I did not make it with a truck in mind, right? And it actually fit. So we kind of compared this to, like, if you've ever played Halo and you manage to get the Warthog through certain doors and you can take it into areas that the game designers never intended for a vehicle to go into. That was also the case here. So then Barbie subs another Omni gadget for Gatling guns in the style of kind of like the 1989 Batmobile when it went into Axis Chemicals, guns blazing. So she's in this huge hallway and she's just taking guys out. One of the bad guys manages to throw a grenade under the vehicle and he does 2 points of damage to the undercarriage. So she just cuts this guy in half with Gatling guns. Humorously, while in this area, she also gets attacked by a gorilla named Brutus, which just annoys her because it's bringing its fist down on the truck she's in. So she runs him down with the truck, and then manages to drive down some really wide stairs into what is basically the factory floor where the bad guys are mass producing these arc reactor bombs. And there's generic guys in something akin to like a radiation suit, and they run for their lives, which again is like a classic James Bond trope. And Barbie just lets them run. Desmond shows up and he shoots her monster truck with a 10 AP laser. So she, whips the truck around. She takes him out with the Gatling guns, gets out, searches the place, steals that laser. My wife still wants that laser for future adventures, and I'm not sure if I want her to keep it. That's a conversation we're having out of game. Um, she gets back in the truck and then she tries to take it up the stairs, but she can't make it happen. So she gets a bunch of failed rolls, and the truck is just taking too much damage, and now it's stuck down here in the basement. So she abandons it. So she gets out, and she eventually she goes higher in the building, and she finds where they had taken the stolen arc reactor, the one that her parents made, and how they had taken it apart to study it. And while she's gathering up the pieces, Barbie finally comes face to face with Rowena. And they banter with Rowena, revealing that Barbie's new boyfriend is basically a clone of King Arthur. And Barbie doesn't care that he was made rather than born. She says he's still a person and she loves him. And Rowena says she's not going to stand by and let Arthur or his clone or his clone's girlfriend take her kingdom from her. And my wife makes this face at the game table that was this like really funny apathetic shrug. It was kind of like she was saying like sucks to suck, without actually saying it. Maybe you had to be there. It was like really, really funny at the time. Anyway, so Rowena subs her sorcery for an energy blast, but gets a crappy roll of the dice and misses Barbie. So on Barbie's turn, she fires back using the 10 AP laser that she looted from Desmond, and she gets another amazing roll, and the shot goes right between Rowena's eyes. Barbie kind of dived to the side as she was doing it. That was how we were representing the idea that the bad guy, her magic blast had missed its mark. So Barbie's laying on her side, and she makes a quip about how she could use a vacation, and how the last couple of days have been like really messed up. Magic, gorillas. Barbie's kind of like grumbling to herself about all the weird stuff that happened in this adventure. Then she sets one of those bombs downstairs in the basement to go off, right? So that it will destroy the lab, the blueprints, etc. And it's on a timer. And she runs outside, and she doesn't have an escape vehicle though now, right? So the Barbie Ferrari rolls up, and Redbridge is in the driver's seat. She says, "I told you not to come." And he says, "I'm not really known for that." So the PCs escape destruction as the castle explodes behind them, which brings us to the epilogue, which takes place back on the cruise ship. Barbie hands the arc reactor over to her mother, but says she never found that second gadget, the nanopatch. She is worried that something involving nanites is still at large. And her parents admit that they based the design on the Brainiac nanites that had recently been used to assimilate the world. And of course, we haven't seen the last of those nanites or the heroes from this adventure. But as is so often the case on our channel, that's a story for another day. But to say that we liked this one feels like a vast understatement. I might go so far as to say we loved this one. It had gorgeous girls, gorillas, gadgets, you name it. So for me, this one was way cooler than I'd ever expect a Barbie adventure to be. Right now, the plan is for the next game, which is this coming weekend, to be kind of like a part two uh, involving these characters, and that would wrap up all the Barbie stuff for this year. Then, but hopefully, we do that one. There's some other stuff we might play. There's kind of a lot going on behind the scenes, but I would say there's like a 90% chance the next adventure is going to be Barbie as well. Right now, we're having a lot of holiday related scheduling issues, so we just have to see what happens. But anyway, yeah, we thought this one was really entertaining. We hope that you were entertained too. If you were, and if you'd be willing to help us grow the channel, we would love it if you took just a quick second of your time to smash like, make sure you're still subscribed, and leave us a comment. And from all of us to all of you, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure.